In the last video, we saw how to line the Petra up with one of the seven wonders of the world below it, all making it an H1. So now all we need to do is we just need to place it in the right position, because we can see if we move our screenshot to where it matches in the top left corner of the actual page, you can see that our text is way off. But the good news is all we got to do is just move that H1, and by moving that H1, because it spans inside the H1, everything else will move with it. And also we can see that all we got to do is just move it down and over. So we got to move it down a little bit and over to the right a little bit. So that's not really too hard to do. Well, there's a couple ways we can do this. Actually, there's three ways right off the bat. We can use a margin on the H1. We could use a heading on the H1 or on the header, or we could do absolute positioning. Well, I'm going to use what's commonly used. Usually if you want to move an element around, you use the margin. So I'm going to start with the margin and see what happens. So I'm going to go to my H1 right here, and I'm going to put in a margin, and I'm going to put in all the placeholders for the shorthands. I'm just going to start with the top, and I don't know what it is, but I'll start with 10 pixels. Now, as soon as I do that, you can see I have a problem, and that problem becomes that I actually moved the whole image down. Okay, I kind of moved that the whole header down. I didn't really want to do that. Well, the reason it's doing that is because it's the header doesn't have a border around it, and there's no elements above this H1, so it has nothing to, in a sense, bounce off of. So what it's doing is it's going to the border on top of the wrapper and bouncing off of that, and thus it's giving me a gap up here. So unfortunately, a margin's not going to work. Okay, so I'm going to take that away. All right, but what is going to work, or that we can try next, is we can try a padding. And I'm going to try giving a padding to my header itself. And so I'll put in my placeholders for that. And I'm going to put my picture back up there. And I want to just move it around to kind of make sure it's matching up in the top left here. Just give me a second. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. And now I can basically just mess with this. So here I'm going to try a 10 picks first. That not look like it's there, so I can guess with like a 20. Looks like I got it with a 20. Now, if it would have been too much, then I would have known somewhere between 10 and 20, and I would just start adjusting from there. So there's my top. Okay, this is my right. I don't need to do that. Here's my bottom. Here's my left. And let me try my left. Okay. 10 pixels to the left, not quite there. Let's try 20, and there it is. Okay, so what I did is I gave a little bit of padding on the heading element here and here. I'm sorry, I gave the padding on the header element here and here, and what that did was it pushed my H1, my heading element, over. Everything else stayed the same. So I've got a pretty good match here. Okay, if I set everything up and make it pixel perfect, dial it right in, you can see it's matching up really nice. So my padding was 20 pixels. I did not need a right or a bottom, and then I had 20 pixels for this edge. And so far, it looks like I've got that going pretty good. There is one thing I have to remember, though, is that the height of my header is 278 pixels. But I added a padding of 20 pixels to the top. So because I did that, I have to compensate here, and I actually have to make this 258 pixels now to make everything stay the same. Okay, so I want to make sure to make that correction, or I might have a problem later. The other thing I need to do is I don't really need this border on my wrapper right now, but I'm going to keep it for a little bit longer just to see if I do need it just for something else. And I'm going to put this. Do a little cleanup here, put a couple of little spaces in there, just make things look nicer. And I'm going to save this, and we are going to move on to building the lower section of this web page.